the lever, Gronk.
Rock Talk.
3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of Grok Talk, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared, extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio, microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
Rock Talk.
This is Grok Talk for December 20th, 2014, brought to you by the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers and the bloggers at GraniteGrok.com. Moving into our 2015 format, we have Mike from India, we have music, we have Skip, we have Guy Comtois here who's going to give us a legislative update as soon as I stop talking. But later on in the program, we're going to have Joe DeLeo in to tell us about what's going on this week at Christmas snowstorm, Christmas rainstorm. We'll talk
Santa bomb,
climate. We'll talk EPA, maybe a few other things. We'll squeeze all that in. And then after that, we'll get to the WTF and all the other fun stuff that we like to talk about. But we'd like to get to there. A lot of things happened in Concord this week. And so Guy has come here to regale us with stories.
Well, actually, excuse me, everything started Organization Day, which was a couple weeks ago now, where the Republican caucus chose their leader. They chose Representative Bill O'Brien to be Speaker. And the way it usually goes is that you would get into Organization Day, and the minority party would get up and cast one vote in favor of the choice of the majority caucus. Well, a representative out of Hudson, Sean Jasper, the Democrat elected Speaker, hooked up with the Democrats and about 40 RINO Republicans, and completely took everybody by surprise for the most part. We knew it was going to be a challenge, but we didn't realize it was that deep-rooted, that the Democrats were stupid enough to give up their Speaker selection from now on, because they crossed over into our caucus to choose our Speaker, and now there's nothing to stop us from crossing over to choose the Speaker candidate they do not want. So obviously it put everything into upheaval. And Jasper, the Democrat elected Speaker out of Hudson, doesn't care at all about Republican agenda, about House tradition. It was all about his huge ego and that of Jack Flanagan out of Brookline. And
who? Isn't he invisible?
Yeah, he's the majority leader chosen by the Democrat elected Speaker, who only got 20%.
So therefore the majority won't allow him to lead them, correct?
Well, Jasper, the Democrat elected Speaker from Hudson, still feels that he, who was not elected by the majority of Republicans, only 20% of the Republicans, thinks that he still can pick our majority leader. Now, it's kind of a mind-boggling thing if you sit there and start writing it down and thinking about it, that, the whole Democrat caucus voted for him, and I think 38 Republicans.
You know what I thought was rather ridiculous, and I did post on this, because it just seems to set up the whole session, that here's the Democrats, they voted for and elected their own minority leader, which Jasper, the Democrat appointed Speaker, turned around and said, okay, you've elected him, I will appoint him to be your minority leader since you've elected him anyways, but didn't even bother to give his own caucus the same respect as he did the Democrats, because he just said, I'm going to appoint regardless of what goes on here. So I just thought about this and it's like, yep, we are going to see the Democrat agenda, because, if he's going to treat his fellow Republicans that way, just in the choice of their own majority leader, you know that he's going to steamroll them.
Exactly. And of course, well, you got to remember that the Democrats did not vote for this person for nothing. I mean, there was some trade-offs there. He owes them something, and you're going to see him tilting things to pay back a political debt.
You like how Shurtleff said, oh, no.
Oh,
No,
shirtless.
Democrats don't do anything.
Shirtless.
I do like, however, and we've been doing this too. Just to interject briefly, the Democrat elected speaker, because it rings very true of John Kerry, who served in Vietnam. From Rush Limbaugh. Every single time you say his name, Sean Jasper, the Democrat elected speaker, don't stop doing that.
No, we can't stop doing it. Actually, Al Baldessaro started it out of Londonderry. He ran into Jasper the following day in the stairs, and he said, "Good morning, Mr. Democrat elected speaker." And Jasper come down the stairs all red-faced and said, "I am the speaker." And he says, "That's right, you're the Democrat elected speaker." And,
I love Al.
And
Al's the best.
Jasper's got a horrible temper. Horrible temper. He's going to come unhinged. Because eventually, no, I mean, Buckley, the Democrat leader, is going to call Shurtleff up and say, "Okay, playing nice is over. We did this to make the Republicans look bad. Now you have to turn and start attacking Jasper, most likely in the election year, next year. And they'll really start attacking him." And, of course, we had our caucus this week with Bill O'Brien. We had approximately 127 people show up. They had their so-called official caucus in Reps Hall, and I heard about 78 or 80 people showed up.
Well, the paper said the opposite thing, because I'm really watching this, and they said that they had a quorum of the quote-unquote official.
Right. Well, that would be 40
caucus.
Republicans, right? Because that's, those are the turncoats. Well, when I say Republicans, I have to say, like the nuns used to say to us when they'd call us gentlemen, we have to use that term loosely. And the same with calling them Republicans. I mean, unfortunately, New Hampshire, citizen legislature, they're in towns. They know they can't get elected as a Democrat. And they just register Republican, for those who are not sure what exactly a RINO is. And the people voting are not really paying attention. They go in, the busy life, they're working, and they see an R next to the name, and they think they're getting Republican. Well, actually, they're getting something even worse than a Democrat, somebody who's a liar to just get in office and to vote with the Democrats.
But according to the assistant or deputy speaker, Gene Chandler, anybody who puts an R after their name is a good Republican.
Well, actually, it's the politician from the last century started that, Sununu, when he was chair of the Republican Party, when we first ran in 2010. If they have an R next to the name, they're a friend. No, they're not. I mean, they're not even close to a friend. The reason why I'm a Republican, okay, because there's nothing better, okay? When it comes to being elected, it's the Constitution, the federal Constitution, the taxpayer that you're up to be a good steward of their money, and the Republican part is so far down on the ladder, it doesn't, they're just watering down everything. A good friend of mine, Rick Okerman out of Windham, who was a rep for 2 years, always says, you can't out-Democrat a Democrat, so why bother trying? And as he used to say, if Romney would have performed abortions in his living room for free and opened the borders to Mexico, the Democrats are still not going to vote for you. So don't try to be a Democrat. Stick with your platform. Hammer away the message to the people that you have no future, because you're going to be in such deep financial debt that, just like right now with New Hampshire, we have the oldest workforce in the country. Well, the way we can, have that is because our children are leaving. Why are they leaving? Well, there's no good high-paying jobs. They're leaving the state.
By the way, I want to welcome the new president of the New Hampshire Right to Life group, which I'm going to ask you to slide. You're going to love this. Slide slightly to your left,
I have to
please.
sit next to him?
Well,
Yeah.
just because of the camera.
That's what I was thinking.
And Grokster Jane Cormier, former New Hampshire State Rep.
And if I hadn't read the news, I'd have known it was Jane as soon as she laughed.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, I wasn't ready.
Oh,
I'm
my.
sorry. I have to go get the laugh, don't I?
Yes, you need to have the laugh on deck.
She did not record that for us. That was online.
That is not me.
It's not you.
It sounds like the Wicked Witch.
No, it doesn't.
That's all right. Some call me that, so it kind of fits.
All right. So,
Only the liberals call you that.
Yeah.
let's talk about the HRA.
You know,
basically.
if you're being called a
caucus.
witch by the right people, it's a good thing.
Oh, that's true.
There you go.
That's true. So you guys had your own caucus meeting.
Right. It wasn't. We had an HRA meeting, then a caucus.
Then a caucus.
Okay. And our caucus wants to stick with the approach of Bill O'Brien as our leader because He was elected by the majority of the Republican caucus.
Plus, you're talking party platform principles, New Hampshire Constitution,
Exactly.
U.S. Constitution, in defense of taxpayers' rights, defense of Second Amendment rights, defense of First Amendment rights, all that stuff.
Small business,
Right.
You name it. And, Jasper hasn't been a Republican for a long time. Democrat elected Speaker
There you go, yeah.
Jasper. Another thing he pulled off this week is usually in the House, if you want to vote,
Skip your phone, buzzing.
That's because you're tweeting.
Is that why?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
if you want to vote on record with your name next to it,
One of our WTF moments of the week.
you call for a roll call. Usually, you only need 10 people to second it. 10 people have to stand up. Well, he just moved it up to 20. Okay, and it might not sound like a big deal, but when you're coming in for a roll call a lot of times, you're looking over, you have your calendar, you're reading. When a person stands up and calls for a roll call, sometimes everybody else thinks the other person's going to
Gonna
stand
take care
up,
of it, yeah.
and they don't stand up. So now we have to organize where we need 20 to stand up real quick because he does not want transparency in
Can
government.
I ask?
gavel.
You were there were you there at that meeting?
The rule meeting, no.
I want to
can
know
only
why
stand
he.
so much.
I can't, and I've asked around, and no one can tell me. I want to know if he took up the question of why he wanted 20.
Oh, I can tell you why.
What do
I
you-
don't
do you know
even
what he
have to be
spoke?
part of the legislature. There's two obvious reasons. One's the Democrats don't want to be on record for their votes.
Yeah.
And the second one is he's going to try to protect the 30
Okay.
to 40 people who voted for him, the RINO. So
Correct.
people like us.
Don't know how they voted. I know that that's why he did it, but I'm trying to find
She's
out
trying
what
why
he
20?
said.
Why the number?
Why he said 20? Why? What?
Oh, I
you
don't
know, when
know.
he put that forth, didn't he have to say, "Well, this is why I think it's a good idea"?
Because he can't count his fingers and toes 3 times.
No,
fast.
he had to have given some sort of cover. That's what I'm looking for. I know that that's the reason.
I heard he had Shurtleff do the dirty work. So I wasn't there. I can talk to Al Baldessaro.
Okay, that's why. See,
There's
bec-
payback.
There it
Again,
is.
political payback to get their
That's
support.
that's how they did it. Because how does a Republican that's on record saying that they're conservative come out and say that they want to change the
Well,
roll
this
call
is
number
what
to
I
20?
wrote. Another one of our potential WTFs of the week was Drew Klein's coming out against rhino hunters.
What a bad
In
article.
my response to that, I wrote, if you'd like a more current glimpse into the gentle rhino mind, and the New Hampshire House Rules Committee just decided that it was far too easy for legislation to be held to account for their votes, legislators to be held to account. To solve this problem of transparency, the current head rhino Democrat elected House Speaker Sean Jasper and his Democrat enablers changed the rules, making it harder to ask for a roll call vote. Can you imagine Republicans accused of being spineless, unprincipled mules for the donkey agenda, labeled as such for voting too often or more often with Democrats, just made it more difficult to be held accountable for their votes.
There you go.
So, I mean, that's exactly it. Here, Drew Klein's defending them, and here they are proving why we got to get rid of them.
Yeah.
No.
That was an editorial, but you know what? That thing was so condescendingly biased. It was so demonizing.
I
was
wrote that I
shocked.
found it to be very amusing. I was entertained by it, but it was completely wrong.
It was totally wrong. But I mean, the level. The level. I mean, this guy is the head editorial writer on that paper.
Imagine if the Lobes were still alive.
They'd be killing
They'd
themselves.
have him hung by a tree out in the yard.
I'll bring the camera.
You know, I mean, that's just,
Terrible.
and that's part of the problem with the media. We talked about this a lot last week, having to set up media defense of the real Republicans, and this is part of that. I mean, you guys have probably been contacted by the media. Everybody's going to be calling you for a response to every single thing that happens. Blah 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 blah.
No, they don't call the real conservative.
They don't.
I mean, they don't want to hear.
Well,
what
that's
they have
true.
To say.
That's
We
right.
might have to print it, but God
And
forbid.
you guys will always have a seat at our table. You can come in, talk whatever you want. We may kind of interrupt you because we don't interview. We just
Talk.
interrupt.
We have it's that what who was it?
The
It's
conversation.
The conversation. It's a table in front of a fire with a beer, and we're talking, and that's what Grok Talk is.
And you know what? That's not a bad thing. I noticed that
Mountain
this.
Dew, not
Or
beer.
Or
Oh,
Mountain
sorry.
Thank you.
There you go.
It's a rhetorical beer.
Have you noticed though that the style with which that the left media does this? Because now that I'm the head of the president of New Hampshire Right to Life, we put out this stuff, and I noticed that when they respond to the things that are put forth, that obviously the left will disagree with, they don't respond immediately.
Nope.
But within like a week or two, most 2, you will see a number, like they cluster these things to follow one another to combat what the original speak was.
It's a rollout. It's a rollout. It's planned. We know that journalists talk to each other about how to contradict the rights.
You are right.
Absolutely. They've always done that.
Yeah, well, remember back a few years when Journal List was discovered?
Yeah, that was what they were doing.
And this was an email list back a few years, back mostly within the Beltway, but the mainstream left journalists, a number
Top,
of the
big name, media, print,
like Ezra
everything.
Klein and a bunch of those folks who now
How do
run
we defend
Fox.
Obama? How do we attack so-and-so?
Yes, that's
How do
right.
we,
I remember that.
That's what they do. And they do it at the local level.
Yeah, academicians, media people, and non-government organizations like Media Matters and things like that, and as well as staffers within the White House. They would all have this list, and they would say, this is what we're going to
Holy
do.
moly.
Narrative, echo chamber,
So
the whole thing.
here we are in New Hampshire, the same thing.
Isn't that
That's why they hate us.
Well, they have to enjoy it now because if you pay attention to circulation of newspapers,
And share prices.
it's going down and down and down.
But they're doing it online, too.
Yes, well, they will be. They won't be as effective. I mean, because you have everybody else online. You're not going to have that spot where
There you go.
And
you
we're
know, you walk
certainly,
into the store and the newspaper's there or that's there. You're going to have everybody having a chance at it. Just like the internet brings any small business onto a world stage, it's going to bring any blogger onto a world stage on politics. But these disgusting so-called journalists who don't have the credibility to at least just print the truth. There's enough good stuff in the truth. Well, you don't need to make anything up. You really don't. I mean, it's.
Well, that's the problem. They don't want the truth. They're gonna.
And even just balance would be nice, but we'll have to get to that in a minute. We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at gerardatlarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Grok Talk is brought to you by the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers, CNHT, and the bloggers at granitegrok.com, and you, our listeners. We are not PBS, but we do take donations because it helps pay for the server fees and everything else that allows us to continue to have a program and to have a blog site and to cause the people on the left and their RINO enablers all kinds of heartache and heartburn, and we enjoy that.
Yes, we love being hated because it goes back to that old statement of laugh, please.
Laugh, please.
Why have me here at all?
Because, you know, it's that old phrase, when you're over the flak, you know you're over the target. So, you know, and they just don't understand. We like it.
Well, it's
What
not
does
so
that
much that
say
we like
about
it.
us?
It's not that we like it so much as we're not intimidated by it.
That's right.
Oh, absolutely
You'll
not.
meet the challenge and then go further, which is what I really like.
Well, you know, it's. I was reading one time where a young man asked Samuel Adams, you know, what can we do to help out, you know, against the British? And he said, agitate, agitate, agitate. And so it worked back then, and he was an expert at it.
Yeah.
It works today.
Granite Grok, community organizers.
Yes.
Ugh, I hate that term now. It's been so usurped by the left.
Yeah, but unfortunately,
It's true.
it works.
I know.
They're
You're right.
actually community disorganizers because they take a community and they get inside it and they take it apart and wreck it.
We bring people together for a common purpose. Like
Mm-hmm.
this last election, I think what we did worked out rather well.
By the way, you know what? If you're talking about that, I looked up, just for the heck of it, the voting totals. And
Yep.
I thought it was kind of interesting. You probably have already discussed it because it's kind of old news, right? But the scatter vote count
Yeah.
for Brown was almost twice what the scatter count was for Havenstein. Did you know that?
Yeah, we just hammered one harder than the other.
We
sort
did
of.
hammer one harder than the other, and look at what happened. I mean, it was like it was almost 1,900 votes that were scattered, which they don't account. They don't say whether you put in what the name
write-in
was.
vote.
Correct.
Right.
But
No
1900.
no wonder he doesn't pray for me.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is that both of them alienated large bases of the conservative wing of the party, and they did it voluntarily, and they thought
It wouldn't
that
matter.
that it wouldn't matter, that they could win without
right.
it. And now we see, now since it's the season for presidential primary for 2016, who do we see saying the same thing, just outright saying the
I
same
don't need them.
thing?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah,
you
how
do.
to win the primary, how to lose in the primary but win in the general. And I'm thinking, this is just like his brother, where we have to destroy the free market principles in order to save it. This makes absolutely...
But doesn't listen to a word you say.
Sorry.
Well,
Well.
Anyway, let's get back to this legislative thing.
That's true.
Right after Mike.
You know, at this point, Jeb's making George W. look positively intelligent.
Absolutely.
George W. is a very smart guy. It's just he had a way of putting things that the journalists used to pounce all over. But, you know, we don't need no more damn rhinos, no more damn Bushes, and certainly no more Clintons.
He wasn't no Joe Biden, though. I mean, come on.
No, he wasn't that bad.
Biden's a
No,
buffoon.
he wasn't.
No.
Okay, I have a question for you, Guy.
Shoot.
The official, quote-unquote, Republican majority had written up in the newspaper a bunch of goals that they wish to achieve. Balanced budget, and I blogged about this. Right, low-hanging fruit. They got to do that by law. Reducing the size of government and regulations. Well, what are they going to use for a base measurement? They can't say they're going to do this if you don't know where you're starting from, so we can compare it to the end. Have they done this? Eliminating Medicaid expansion. Yeah, that's got a ghost of no chance at all. Lowering electricity costs we talked about during the pre-show. Making the state more business-friendly. Well, that's not going to be such a high bar to step over. And improving state agency accountability and efficiency now that they've made it harder to do in the legislature itself.
So in other words, what you're saying is the Democrat elected speaker, Sean Jasper, just stole Bill O'Brien's agenda.
Well, my question...
Sounds just like him, right?
Well, my question is...
Well, yeah, and let's not forget that when Bill Clinton got reelected, he effectively stole the Republican agenda. Democrats know what to steal.
Yeah, they do.
They're good thieves.
Yeah, our money.
But my question is, are you guys going to put together a specific list of enumerated things you wish to get across and achieve? And are you going to, if it's a case of like lowering electricity, well, no, let's get back. Reducing the size of government regulations. Are you going to give us a before and after picture so we can actually hold you folks accountable? Will you hold yourselves accountable in trying to get this done?
Well, we're not going to meet again until after the first year, and you're talking about now the most popular caucus. Let's call it that, right? The one that met after the HRA meeting, headed by Bill O'Brien.
Right, the majority caucus.
Right,
the majority caucus.
Right, the majority caucus. Yes, we're going to be putting together a plan. Hopefully, it's not the same old. That's something they've been printing off. I think they probably have their agenda hanging in the Republican office up there for the last 30 years, and they just change it around in order and they ship it back out. I mean, it's kind of ironic, and that the you know what I've noticed is I'm talking to a lot of young people, and they're Democrats, but they don't realize that they're really not Democrats. Mm-hmm. I think as the Libertarians have a questionnaire, that little booklet they would give out, and you'd answer the questions, and at the end they'd say, well, if you answered so many, whatever. Mm-hmm. Republicans need to do that because there are many, many people out there that grew up Democrat, think they're Democrats, and they're really not Democrats. I mean, may not be Republicans, maybe more on the Libertarian side. The Republicans need to craft a message, and like Ron Paul brought the most young people into the party since I don't remember when, okay? And his message was simple. You have no future, okay? We're blowing it.
Yeah.
It's the same message.
China just overtook our economy. It was supposed to be 2035. How long before India does it? It can't be long because no matter just about who you call, I mean, if you call up to pay your serious bill, you're talking to somebody in India. I mean, IRS outsources to India.
I'm going to take a little exception. Hold on, Mike. Mike, hold on.
I'll just turn him down. Go ahead.
I'm going to take exception to that because they were trying to spin this on a per capita purchasing price basis where they would say China was better. When you look at the overall economies, we've got an $18 trillion economy now. Theirs is at $6 trillion, even though they have 3 times as many people as what we do. So I would take great exception to that. That's more of getting back to the journalism kind of deal where they're straining to bend the lying statistics to make it look like we're number 2, because a lot of people on the left don't want us to be number 1.
No,
Correct.
of course not.
It's
We're bad.
like the left saying it's wrong that we burn up 25% of the world's oil, but yet we generate about 25% of the world's GDP.
We are fully a full quarter plus of the entire world's
Which is
GDP.
why, and we do it more efficiently, more environmentally friendly, more effectively.
It is kind of ironic.
Cleaner, and you know.
They sit there
Don't
and they.
forget, Mike.
Yeah, there you go. What a slogan. Let's shut down the rest of the world's industry because we are more efficient.
There you go.
I mean, and you'll have the high-powered lefties get up there and the environment, then they jump into that limousine, they shoot to the airport, they have the private jet takes them someplace else. So it's a complete elitist, what we have too much of in this country. I can do it because, of course, I'm out doing good, but the rest of you pigs, we want you to get to.
Oh yeah, it was okay for Martha Fuller Clark to hit a pedestrian because she was doing the people's business when she did it.
And the guy was only 3 feet up on the sidewalk. It should be 6 feet back.
That's right. We need wider sidewalks.
And that was the second accident in
Here we go. ADD bloggers.
Right.
We're off on another tangent. Back to the legislative.
Oh God.
After.
You know what?
Welcome.
Before I lose this point, I wanted to throw it out. It
Lose 1 point. We've got too many points.
Legislative point. You know what I think really the HRA is going to have to do? Because it's obvious that what the left is doing is that they're trying to make the conflict that's inside the Republican Party, right, the real problem. That's the real issue. That's what's getting the press. We're not keeping the message simple. And if HRA does that, if they are able to construct a message that's one sentence every time,
bumper sticker,
then we're going to be able to fight it. But I'll tell you right now, if you disengage from what we're doing, see, we're in the weeds. Like just now when you talked about China, okay,
Yep.
I didn't know that information. I'm pretty good at being up on stuff. I did not know that information. We have a well of all this information that people that are engaged have. We can talk amongst ourselves and get it, right? But until we can disengage from that and look and see what the swell of folks actually know, which is really little, unfortunately, right? They're not informed.
They have to weed through all the crap to
They
get
won't.
to the truth.
They won't weed through the crap, and they'll just keep hearing about
you got to
those.
keep it. You do have to keep it simple, and this is a problem that Republicans have had, and I think we've probably talked about it in varying forms. And as bloggers, you want to try to get past that wall and make it funny or make it smart or make it simple or anything you can do to get the message across. But it does need to be a bumper sticker message, and we can talk about that some more in the next segment because we ran out of time.
Here it is. You get to decide. That's it.
Well, have a
we
contest.
want you to decide.
Have a contest.
All right.
Grok's having a contest for bumper sticker.
Yeah, there you go. And then we'll print them up and we'll take them out. And this is Grok Talk, and we'll be right back.
When asked whether she still supports Obamacare, Senator Jean Shaheen said,
"Yes, I do continue to support the law. We're beginning to see some positive results."
How can Senator Shaheen say we're seeing positive results when 22,000 of our neighbors have already lost their health insurance? What's worse, the Boston Globe reports the state's only health insurance provider radically reduced the number of hospitals in their network, forcing some people to drive over an hour for lab work, even when there's a hospital within a few miles of their home. When pressed about lack of access, Shaheen said,
"There are some hospitals that are not covered, unfortunately, and I certainly hope that's going to change."
Jean Shaheen promised us we could keep our doctors and our healthcare coverage. Now she hopes we can get to a local hospital? Call Senator Shaheen at 603-647-7500. Tell her we need more than hope. We need leadership. Paid for by Citizens for a Strong New Hampshire.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning. You're listening to Grok Talk.
Oh, feel the power.
Oh, I could feel it.
Our moment of triumph approaches. It's
Grok Talk.
3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of Grok Talk, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared, extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio, microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
Stop it.
What do you mean, stop it?
Rocking.
See,
back and forth.
I had to do that again because you interrupted. Anyway, welcome back to
Grok Talk.
Brought to you by the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers and the bloggers at GraniteGrok.com.
It's Rocking Steve.
And you can check us out on a bunch of places. I didn't write them down, so I can't remember what they are, but they include iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spreaker, YouTube, Ustream, iTunes, TuneIn. I gotta remember what they are. There's so many of them.
Goodness.
Blip TV.
Blip TV.
Old stuff.
I don't go to Blip TV. Don't go there. Anyway, do the modern thing, and hopefully someday Google Plus, which I don't know who's on Google Plus. But
all right, we're taking the stuff home again. Hopefully the same thing that happened during Thanksgiving break won't happen again this break, and I'll actually sit and do techie stuff again.
Yeah, but you don't have any internet, right?
No, I don't have a phone.
You don't have a phone. Okay.
Internet I got plenty of. I'm a Fairpoint customer.
I know, but how could you still not have a phone?
Because
he's a Fairpoint customer.
Because the
They know
technicians...
who he is.
Yeah. That's true. That's probably what it is. He's on the list.
The cell phone
Skip
doesn't work.
Murphy? No.
Yes, but that phone went down a long time ago, right?
Well, yeah.
Are you paying your bill? I wouldn't pay my bill.
I haven't paid for 3 weeks of the bill.
Good.
And I just told MetroCast
Ridiculous.
I got to post this up, but again, when you have competition, you can punish those that don't service you well.
Right.
So I called up my MetroCast cable guys and said, I want a phone now. And it's going to be cheaper.
Good.
It's going to be faster.
There you go.
And I get to tell Fairpoint strikers, guess what? You just made your company poorer.
Mm-hmm.
Because...
Yeah, it's wrong.
Yeah.
It's just
All right,
wrong.
coming up at 10 o'clock, Joe DeLeo will be with us to talk about weather and climate and some stuff like that. And we'll have another guest on the phone who's going to call in, Josh Moore's dad, Ron, who's also into meteorology, and we're going to let those guys go at it and talk about some stuff that we'd be like, what? But anyway, it'll be fun and cool, and we'll have some fun doing that. And in the final segment, we'll get to the final winner of the WTF moment, which could include NHPR, Drew Klein, Cuba, the roll call rule, Cuba, and everything else that we do normally in the first segment. But right now we have Guy Kampfmeyer and Jane Cormier has joined us, and we are talking about recent.
You forgot somebody.
Stuff. Oh, Mike. Yeah, hi, Mike. You there?
Hi there. My goodness gracious me.
I am going to need to kick you off line one at the end of this segment, just so you know, because I need both phone lines.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me know when I should dial back.
Just after 10:30 would be fine.
Ring back.
10:30 our time. And I know you're on the half hour, so you'll have to do some math, but that's okay. Anyway, let us proceed. We were talking during the break about messaging, really, basically, and how a lot of people, even people who were just inside the sausage factory, don't know a lot of the finer details, and I can relate to that because when I started doing this, I didn't know a lot of things. You know, now every state's a little different about the way they do things, but there's some things that are pretty consistent. Roll call votes, for example, are when they actually record what the rep votes for, and if they're not present,
unexcused, which means they walked on a vote,
right? And things like that. And the reason we like those things is because it provides us with transparency. The reason we know rhinos are rhinos is because of roll call votes.
Right.
The reason we know good conservatives are good conservatives and Democrats are Democrats, and the reason that Democrats know these things is because of roll call votes.
Right.
Transparency is our friend. So we were talking about even just that as an example, using that as a teaching moment to tell people, like I said in my little post about Drew Klein's thing, here's an example. Why would you not want to know how your legislator is voting to spend your money or to regulate your life? Would you want to know that? Is that something you'd be interested in?
Well, a bigger question is, why does your legislature not want you to know?
Right. Why does your Republican legislator?
Because
any legislator, but in this context,
we're supposed to be all about the little guy, right? We're supposed. Well, I mean, really, truly, the Republicans are about small governance, right? Accountability, transparency. So why would any Republican promote making a roll call more difficult to do?
And who are the chairs and the vice chairs of the Rules Committee?
All of his chairs and vice chairs.
Well, it's Jasper is the head of it.
Yep.
And good old, isn't it Flanagan?
No, Gene Chandler.
Gene Chandler.
Yeah.
Oh, see, I got that
good
mixed
old
up.
boys. Here we go.
It's all good old boys, and it's right now with that new roll call system that they put in, what it cost $500,000-$600,000.
Yeah. No kidding.
You can see our votes within 5 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So you can be sitting. My wife will be watching at home, and she'll know 5 seconds after the 30 seconds are up, because you get 30 seconds for a roll call, and then the buzzer goes off, and then they post the numbers. They'll know exactly where you're at. And a lot of people are paying attention, and they can't have this. He's got to do payback to the Democrats.
That's right.
And the roll calls beat the Democrats up.
And that's the message.
Well, it beats the rhinos up.
Right. No, the Democrats,
Yeah, the
Yeah, but it's shirtless.
Okay,
They're extended family.
Right.
But that's a great way to put it, extended
Democrat
family.
extended family.
Remember now, Guy said, and if this is true, I mean, of course I wasn't there, I don't know if you were, but if Shurtleff was the guy that promoted this, if Shurtleff was the guy in that committee to talk about that 20, then my thought would be absolutely this was the payback. This was one of the paybacks for him getting in.
I don't know if he was in there pushing this. From what I read, he did the dirty work.
Okay.
And it's his payback. Jasper and him, the Democrat elected Speaker Jasper and his Democrat appointed minority leader, they're buddies.
Yeah.
I mean, their ideology is the same.
Yep.
The only reason why the Democrat elected Speaker Jasper doesn't come out is because he wants to get reelected. He's been there, I think, I don't know how much, 20-something years. He is the
18,
poster child for term limits.
Well,
okay?
Here's the other deal. Is he also the poster child along with a bunch of other folks? And Alida Millam would be a prime candidate if she was still there.
No kidding.
A person who ran not just as a Republican, but also ran as a Democrat at the same time for years and years and years. She also, like the Democrat-appointed Speaker Sean Jasper, pulled a Doug Scammon on the Belknap County Committee, where she conspired with the Democrats in the convention, as you guys well know, to become the chair over Steve Nadeau. But that's a we could go into a big rat's hole for that.
Hopefully, she's gone forever.
And then she, as a Republican, publicly endorsed Democrats in the general election against Republicans.
She was
literally
nothing but a
helped them,
socialist,
too.
I swear.
They just endorsed, helped out.
And there's Alan Glassman.
Yeah,
he's
good friend.
Not only the Belknap County chair, but the area vice chair for the NHGOP. When somebody nominated Alida to be on the state committee, he just politely said, okay, I'll write it down. Didn't even challenge her after what she had done for the Democrats until I put my hand up and forced him on the issue. He, as an elected, responsible, quote-unquote, person, just was going to let her go through.
Yeah.
And so what does that say about the party as far as, I often say, junior partners of the Democrats, junior lackeys of the welfare state, and when you see this happening, what is the low information voter thinking? The Republicans seem to take great umbrage at when somebody says there's not a dime's difference between the two of them, and they go, say lots of words, but your actions speak louder than your words. You must run into this in the legislature all the time.
Well, as far as Glassman goes, it's not worth me asking him, but it's like, why are you a Republican? And secondly, my wife beat him.
Oh, yes, I thought this
delegate, okay? So he was like the only chair, I think, in New Hampshire that wasn't a delegate. Okay, so he was just running around like their little lackey with the camera because that's what he likes to do.
I remember. Now I posted something because and I was never able to pin this down, but apparently he brought out the Jewish card instead of the race card for saying, "Well, people in New Hampshire hate the Jews." Now, rumor only.
No, he said. I heard that.
I heard, this is hearsay,
right,
folks.
Pretty good hearsay, but I heard that he went back and forth on how he could have lost my wife, and the only thing that they came up with is they're anti-Semites in
goodness.
Bonstead.
Seriously.
Okay.
Anti-Semites. The
it's
anti-Semites in
Bonstead. It's not that his politics they do not agree with, right? Can't be that. It can never be the truth. We got to find. I mean, you see this all the time, right? Every time somebody loses.
Wait a minute.
You lose in a political race.
Anti-Semites in Barnstead?
You know what the funny part is, though? The funny part is Havenstein won in Bonstead.
Yeah.
How do you figure that one
They
out?
just didn't know he was Jewish.
Yeah, they didn't know.
You know what? If you did, I don't know whether he's German or Jewish, and it doesn't matter to me.
No, it shouldn't.
It doesn't
But
at all.
I'm sure
Makes
if
no
you were anti-Semite, his name would be
Sally.
enough to stay away from it, right?
Here's the thing. The similarity
That's
is
true,
something
because
we've
when
been
you're an
listening-
anti-Semite, you don't go with a lot of detail. You just...
That's right.
This is
Stein, that's all they can think of.
This is the same thing that we've been listening for the last 6 years, 7 years now. Is that the reason why we all hate Obama is because he's black? They're constantly throwing the race card.
Half.
No, it's not because of his big ears either. It's his liberal, progressive policies. The progressives don't understand. The people on the left always want to say you hate him because of the color of her skin. Skin color doesn't matter at all. You're inherently racist because you don't believe. You can't be colorblind. You have to be racist to hate him. No!
Listen, they don't believe that anyway. That goes back to our messaging thing that we were just talking about.
Hey,
Do you think they believe that? They just know it's a 5-word sentence because he's black, right? They're going to take that and they're going to shove that. Well,
4 words.
You hate him or something. I don't know. But the thing is that's why they get the message out. They take this thing. Doesn't matter if it's true. It's got to have a few words, and they just keep shoving it down your throat, and pretty soon people swallow it. But don't mistakenly believe that they actually believe that.
No.
It's totally they thought it out.
Look what they did back. If I had to put a poster up in my room, it would be of Clarence Thomas, and it was the Democrats. The Democrats was destroying him back
absolutely.
in, I think it was
I
1991.
I remember it.
And how Dr. Phil said that the only thing I think I agree with that he's ever said that the American voter has ADD, and the American voter does forget a lot that the Democrats were going after Clarence Thomas, okay, because he was conservative.
Right, absolutely.
And they did not want a man of color, conservative, to get in there and mess in their playground.
That's right. They felt the message would be lost. They would be able to take that message. Talking of Glassman, just last week somebody told me that he was at an event, a Republican event with Sharon Carson. They were sitting at the same table, and they were taking the hatchet to me, evidently, and just wondering when I was going to go away. And that whole debacle when he was taking pictures of my husband's truck in front of my house in Alton, which he did 3 times, even though, he says all these other excuses. He's still talking to people about that and how I misrepresented that.
Because he's guilty.
And how...
Because he's guilty. If you're guilty of something, you keep bringing it up. If there's nothing to it, right, you forget it tomorrow.
What the heck is that?
Are you sure that when they were talking about when you were going to go away, was Carlos in that conversation?
What do you mean? Oh, no. Oh, I see what you're saying. No. I can't, and I would love to be able to tell you who told me this, but and evidently Sharon Carson, who doesn't know me from a hole in a wall, I mean, I think I've said 3 words to her, certainly, was of the mindset that I was a persona non grata. But I mean, what the heck is that? It's because we get in the way of the message.
That's right.
And they don't want it.
Well, you make them take a. You bring their feet to the fire.
Yes.
Okay, this is the Republican platform. They want to just do what they do in Washington. They're down in Washington. It might as well be one of the moons of Saturn, really, because we have no idea what's going on down there.
Yeah.
Because you can't believe anything that comes out of there.
Well,
okay, and then you have the little baby Washington up here, and they want to just get inside there, and they want to stick it to the taxpayer.
Right.
Okay, they want to do a couple little things that'll help out the taxpayer so they're not totally lying when they go back to run for re-election. But at the end of the day, they do not want their feet to the fire. Obviously, that's why the Democrat elected Speaker Jasper wants 20 folks to stand up. The person that calls for the roll call doesn't count. Okay, you need him plus 20.
I think you need to change that sentence.
Also, you know the sheet we sign? You know, you can do the bill number.
Yeah.
It's just so, because a lot of times they'll go, roll call, and if you're not up in 4 seconds,
right.
Okay, not sufficient second.
Norelli did that a couple times.
Yes. So you fill out a sheet, you sign it, and you hand that in ahead of time. Well, now he said that, well, in order for that sheet to be used, you have to be in your assigned seat.
What?
Yeah.
I
Can't
didn't
be in
know
any
that.
room anymore.
Seriously?
What?
Yep.
What if you have to go to the bathroom or something? The fact that you filled out the sheet doesn't hold the roll call?
You'll be in your assigned seats.
You have to be in your assigned. All right, we're going to take a quick
Sounds
break.
like homeroom.
We'll be right back.
Oh.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at gerardatlarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
Grok Talk.
We are Grok Talk, brought to you by the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers, greenacrock.com, and everybody else. Hey, why exclude anybody, right? Hey, Mike.
So, quick follow on from the last segment.
Yeah.
So we know that that roll calls like to cockroaches and crosses to demons is something that the Democrats and the RINOs can't stand. And of course, the RINOs all tried to blame Bill O'Brien.
Oh, and New
for
Hampshire
wanting
Republican
a roll call
senators
vote.
don't like him either. So.
No, for wanting a roll call vote on the speakership, which is interesting because all of us that actually care about the outcome wanted that roll call vote because we wanted to know who the turncoats were.
Right. And if you run for election like we do as state representatives, you're big boy now. Stand up and tell the people where you're voting. Don't hide behind a secret ballot. Secret ballots are great at the town hall or wherever you vote, okay?
That's for
it
the
is literally
citizens.
none of anybody's business. But when you are elected, when that process is over and the people have sent you to do their business, you should be man enough, or woman enough to stand up and say who you want to be speaker or anything else. And they hide behind a little paper ballot.
It's like the rats legislating against rat poison.
Exactly.
Well, the Belknap County set a precedent in the New Hampshire Supreme Court a few years ago with Doug Lambert, Tom Tardif, who sued against for the right to know how their legislative appointees on the county convention voted for the new sheriff, who happens to be Wiggins, brought it all the way up to the court, pro se, and they won because the county convention at the time, Elida Millam was there. Have to throw that in. And they wanted a secret vote. And their reason for that was, well, we don't want to embarrass our friends that we didn't vote for them.
Right.
And no, the ruling was you are doing the people's business. You have to do a public vote on this position to fill the empty seat when Don Collis moved on to a private sector job. And I think the same thing in the legislature. We should, as citizens who do the votes, to put you guys into the seats, we need to know how you've done. Because too often, even the Republicans do it. They've called themselves this or that or whatever, and yet you look at their votes and you go, you're lying.
That's right.
You can't redefine the language, and that's why I'm stopping listening to the words. I'm only interested in the actions, and I think most voters should do the same thing. Don't listen to the words, only look at the actions.
Right. You know, and it's a beautiful thing when you go up there and do everything you say you're going to do, because I don't have to when I'm anywhere in town, I don't have to cross the street and get away from somebody that I told I was going to vote this way. Every way or whatever I've said I'm going to do, I've done. I've gone up and voted the Republican platform, liberty-minded conservatism, and, of course, the Constitution and the taxpayers. With the unions representing the people they represent right now, if you did not have the legislature, the regular folks that are working non-union jobs would absolutely positively have no representation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I have to say that I remember meeting you when Senator Forsyth was trying to get reelected again, and I happened to be standing next to you, and I did a walking interview with you.
In Alton, in
the Alton 4th of July parade. And I've never forgotten that, because you are a shining example of one of the things that I've been saying this last election cycle, which is consistency breeds trust, yields votes. You have been absolutely consistent in how you voted. You are a person that I never have to wonder how you're going to vote, because you vote your principles, you vote your stated principles, and you stayed true to those principles. So, trust. Imagine that.
I don't have any singing choir
God,
angels.
My wife is going to be so upset with you. You're growing. My ego's getting larger.
Oh, my goodness.
She's not going to let me come next week.
I know. Jane, I know, please.
Oh, my. I don't want to do it.
But you know what? It's so easy, too.
It is.
It is
but
so easy.
It's it's not easy if you don't have principles.
But Republicans, I've been trying to get this message across. If you're consistent, you'll breed the trust of your voters, and you'll get the votes. But at the same time, I don't want to have to worry about how they're going to vote this way, that way, or whatever.
Right.
With you, I don't have to worry. So you're a natural. And that's all Republicans have to do to win.
Yeah, but he's
will this
rare.
Work? Will this work?
Yeah. Okay. Well,
yeah.
Well, you know, another thing I'd like to mention, too, is that Representatives Dan and Carol McGuire, Epsom, Pittsfield, Allenstown, they were with Bill O'Brien, and it was pleasant to see this past week that they were asked to chair, vice chair and chair. I think Dan vice chair one of the finance committees, which is a powerful spot, and Carol to chair her the committee she chaired about 2011 and 12, and they turned it down. True to their principles, they turned down the positions because they do not agree with Democrat elected speaker. And that doesn't happen often.
No.
And the folks down in Epsom, Pittsfield, Allenstown, you should, when you see them or run into them, thank them for standing the ground and looking out for you instead of their egos. And most of a lot of times with chairs and vice chairs, it's simple ego. I mean,
totally.
In New Hampshire, the committee chair doesn't have much power. There's no backroom deals. So you can be a regular rep out in committee and get just as much done as the chair and half the work.
That's right.
It
is true.
Because they have to schedule everything. They have to make sure rooms are available. They
run the meeting.
And in New Hampshire, it's a wonderful thing. It really is. But the McGuires, they both turned it down, and I think they are the only two.
Say thank you to them for us,
they know how I feel about it.
No, but from us at
I will, and hopefully they're listening. I know they're pretty busy, but
they're also two of the smartest.
It was a good thing to see, and of course, Big Al Baldessaro out of Londonderry, he ain't calming down anytime soon. I was hoping that I could bring him up here with me sometime. He could be my backup. I got to ask him first. I have to ask him first.
He is welcome. We've told him this. Anytime he wants to come in, we have a chair and a headset for him.
I will ask him, and then also I'd like to go from here one day up to Neil Young's show in Laconia, and we're going to spread the message that we have a Democrat-elected speaker, that please don't think this is politics as usual for 200 of us. Most Republicans go up there because they are concerned about the state of the state. They are concerned about the taxes, folks not being able to make ends meet, and we got derailed by an egotistical narcissist, out of Hudson, and backed by Ayotte. And the ironic thing about this Ayotte is Ayotte did not want Bill O'Brien because, oh my God, there's going to be turmoil and on and on and on. So she's trying she's trying to squelch turmoil.
She got it worse.
And what she did, she made it worse. This is not going away. We are standing up for our principles. We're not spoilers. We're not babies. We are people who believe in the Republican platform that's been adopted at the convention. we are the ones for small government. We are the ones for small business. We're looking out for the taxpayers. We're looking out for liberty. Democrat elected Speaker Jasper, he doesn't even have a clue. He thinks principal is the person that's ahead of a school. Okay, and the ironic part about them is that they can't understand the new breed of conservatives that are running. The ones like myself and when Jane was there, and there's quite a few of us.
Glenn Aldrich.
Because we're standing on principles, and it took me a while to dawn on me that the reason why they can't figure us out is because they don't know what that is. They don't understand that feeling.
They're there to make deals and curry favor.
That's right. That feeling of it's a financial hardship for a lot of us up there. You get mileage, you get $100 a year. You get $179 after taxes and mileage, but you spend hundreds and hundreds of hours up there. Okay, which is fine. We agree to that. We're there because we want to try to make this place better, and most Republicans are. Jasper, Democrat elected Speaker, along with Shurtleff, have given them so much ammo against us in 2016. That's one of the reasons why the Democrats went for this. They were salivating over this.
Absolutely.
They're going to kill us in 2016. The people of New Hampshire, the majority of the people of New Hampshire, sent the conservative message to Concord. And Jasper made all kinds of deals, unprecedented, crapping all over any principles or any precedents or House tradition, and his massive ego. He's Democrat elected Speaker right now, and it's not going to work out well for him.
Flanagan's no better either, just so you know. The guy that he picked for majority leader.
I just want to speak to what you said.
That's not over yet. We got the House rules. The rules they made the other day now come to the floor for a vote.
Good.
I just want to tag off of what you had said about they don't understand the new brand of conservatism. Ted Cruz had a great line. He said, I've not come to Washington to follow the rules, but to change the rules. And he used an analogy. I'm their Uber to their taxi service. And if you're familiar with the controversy going on, and I think you're doing the same thing, it is folks like you who are coming in to say, there's a reason why we're doing this. I've been saying for a while, and again, another one of the memes I'm trying to get to move around here. Winning is only a precursor. It's what you do afterwards that's more important.
Absolutely.
You guys, you understand that you have to win. But to a lot of the, I'm a good Republican only because I've got an R next to my name, that's the only thing they care about. You guys, on the other hand, do understand what comes afterwards is the most important. And you're sitting down and saying, what is it that we're going to do to further our principles, not just because we're going to further the Republican Party. And that's what's got the RINOs and the establishment's panties all in a wad.
And
they don't get that.
That's got to be the meme, is principles over party, because that goes both ways. Both parties can agree with that, because that's an innate human thing.
I don't know. Both parties.
Well,
can
you know
agree
what?
with it.
Listen, I'm not willing to throw. I've known, and you said the same thing over there, that there are some Dems that aren't as bad as others.
But they still vote with the party.
They will. They will.
Anyway, we're out of time. Thank you so much for coming in. Coming up next, Joe DeLeo, and we'll be right back. This is Grok Talk. Stay tuned, please.
Senator Jeanne Shaheen said, if you like your current health plan, you can keep it. That's not true, Senator. 22,000 New Hampshire citizens have been kicked off their insurance plans. Hospitals in Rochester, Concord, and Portsmouth, they aren't allowed to provide care under the exchange. Senator, you were wrong in your comments. You should apologize for your misleading remarks. I'm calling Senator Shaheen at 750-3004 and telling her I want my doctor back. You should too.
Paid for by saberpac.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidate committee.
We are struggling. Rising healthcare costs are part of the problem. Senator Jeanne Shaheen helped create this mess we're in. As a state senator, her bill chased 21 insurers out of our state. It reduced our choices, raised prices for New Hampshire families, and when Jeanne Shaheen supported Obamacare, it limited access to 10 of our 26 hospitals, reducing our choices again. Tell Jeanne Shaheen she's made healthcare worse. Few things are as important as finding the right doctor. And under Obamacare, that's harder than ever. Over a third of our hospitals no longer available. Our doctors no longer covered. Fewer choices, longer drives. No state has been harder hit than us. And even after watching it impact New Hampshire, Congresswoman Ann Custer still supports it. Call Ann Custer. Tell her Obamacare isn't working for New Hampshire.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now, at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Oh, feel the power.
Oh, I can feel it.
Now a moment of triumph approaches. It's
Rock Talk.
3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of Grok Talk, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone-stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
Rock Talk.
Welcome back to Grok Talk. It is December 20th, 2014, 10 a.m., segment 3. I'd like to remind you to check us out on Stitcher, iTunes, Spreaker, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, or Ustream. This program is paid for entirely by us. We are not funded by anybody. So if you want to make a donation, go to GraniteGrok.com. Toss some nickels, dimes, pennies, or dollars into the donate jar, if you would, please, to help keep the program on the air. And we'd like to continue to thank the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers who have been so kind to allow us to use this space every Saturday to make sure you can get your programming. Once again, thanks to Guy Comtois and Jane Cormier, who are still here listening in the studio. But we'd like to get to our next guest, who's somebody we've had on a couple of times. And it's a good time to have him on because we've heard this rumor that we might be getting this huge snowstorm, but that it also might be a huge rainstorm. Joe DeLea, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm going to disappoint those that are hoping for a white Christmas and a big snowstorm for ski country, but we may get a dusting to coating the next couple of days, but Christmas Eve will be heavy rain and a warm-up. But then we transition back to winter over Christmas week, and you'll feel like winter's really here. We'll hear the term polar vortex come back when we get into January.
I did see that you guys were saying that over like the next 6 weeks after Christmas, heading into February, is expected to be really, really cold. Can you explain? I don't know. I mean, you guys do a great job of doing it at Weatherbell. Can you just explain to our listeners what factors are involved in that prediction and why you think that's going to happen?
Yes. Well, we do what we call an analog method, where we look at conditions in the oceans, not just El Nino and La Nina, but the state of the Atlantic and Pacific, and particularly warm pools and cold pools in different parts of the ocean. Look at years that had similar conditions, and we find that very often, when we include also the solar activity, the winds in the upper atmosphere, and other factors, the years that match best with what the conditions are this year look alike. And so we use a composite, a blending of all of those years as our forecast. And that worked very well for us last winter, when the summer before, all the stars aligned and said it was going to be an historic winter, especially near the Great Lakes, and I think you know it was. The coldest December to March ever in Chicago, snowiest winter.
What are we talking about?
In Detroit, and
the
most ice on the Great Lakes in record. Well, those conditions, a lot of them are still in place this year. We are moving into an El Nino, but it's the kind of El Nino that tends to be cold when we get to January and February. The Eastern Pacific is warm, which is going to favor the cold. And we said January especially would be cold. Now, November was cold. It was the snowiest November on record for the U.S. and the 16th coldest since 1895. December was much warmer. It was an up and down kind of December, but we'll go back into the cold, and it should linger into the early part, at least of the early part of February. But we'll really feel the cold Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, and into the first part of January, at the very least. It'll be extreme.
Yeah, Joe, this is Skip again, and I want to say thanks for coming on the show. I was sort of the impetus for having you on the show because I was over at Anthony Watts's blog site, What's Up With That, and I saw that he had posted the chart of what Weather Bell put out, and I caught the phrase, the Great New England Blizzard of 1978, and I was living in Boston at that time, going to Boston University, and I remember what happened in Boston, Kenmore Square area and all of that, and I'm thinking, holy cow, this could be interesting. And, you know, your projection is that this is going to be as strong, a low-pressure area as strong as some of the hurricanes that come up the coast that hit us here in New England. I was thinking, okay, it's been cold. It looked like the high was, the low was, just off to our west, and I'm thinking this could be just a ton of snow. And yes, afterwards, WMUR Channel 9 here in New Hampshire was saying rain, rain, rain. So that was one reason for asking you to come on and talk about this. But what is the strength of the storm going to be, whether it's snow or rain?
Well, it's going to be quite a storm, a very deep low, but it'll be into the Great Lakes. What most people don't remember about 1978 was there actually were three major blizzards. There was the one we remember here in the east that paralyzed our area and shut down the state of Massachusetts and pretty much stopped travel for days elsewhere. But there was one a week or so before that went into the Great Lakes that the one that Weather Bell's Ryan Maui was comparing it to. It was a very, very strong low that with very low pressure that crossed into the Great Lakes, produced a lot of snow in parts of the Great Lakes in the Ohio Valley, and very cold weather behind it, and actually produced rain here in New England. We had a snowstorm a week or so prior to that. We had rain and warmth with that storm, and then the big blizzard followed. So we had three in a row. And 1977-78 is one of our what we call analog years that has a lot of similarities to this year. This is the Great Lakes storm. We may get our chance come a little later.
Joe, I was doing some pre-show research, and I came across an article where you were interviewed by CNS News back in mid-November, and you said, from the government's own data, there's been no warming in winter for 25 years. In fact, there's been cooling for 20 years. All 9 climate regions have cooled in winter for 20 years. The quote is, "This decade is just 4 years old, and we've already had 12 major impact East Coast snowstorms out of close to 50 since the 1950s, which they call NESIS storms. This is the most active, snowiest decade on record. The last decade, the 2000s, had 10. The 60s had 10. This decade has 12, and we're only 4 years into it. We could really be creating an historic decade when all is said and done." What are we looking at here?
Well, it certainly looks that way. I would think we'll add maybe even half a dozen more before the decade is up, considering the direction the oceans and the sun is heading. So it's if people tell you, boy, it just doesn't snow like it did when I was a boy. Usually I say, yeah, well, when you were a boy, you were 2 feet tall, and so 6 inches of snow seemed like a lot of snow to you. But actually, we're rivaling and surpassing the great snow years.
So now you've also said that the sun appears to be heading into a 200-year minimum. clearly that's going to have an impact. You talk about water temperatures. I want to encourage people to go to Weatherbell, and you may not need to have premium service unless you love the weather and you want to get all the good details. But Joe Bastardi's Saturday Summary is something that you should look at, just because you'll get an idea of what the experts are looking at, and how far ahead you can see what the weather's going to be like, and you can learn some things about weather. You'll learn some terms. It's a lot of fun.
Right. And then we do a lot more, of course, in the premium every day, and we'll explain why we this rainstorm is coming, and when it's going to change, and why we still believe January is going to be brutal on our premium service. And you get a lot of pretty maps, too. Very high-resolution global maps go out to 16 days, and in some cases, months into the future. We have a lot of weather enthusiasts that use our site and for their own enjoyment, but some business people obviously want to plan ahead. And November, no doubt, helped the sweater sales.
Yeah.
I think the last few weeks may have slowed that down a little bit, but they'll be sorry if they didn't get the sweaters come January.
One of the things that I do read is, as you could tell, is what's up with that blog site, because while it gets into a fair amount of technical detail, if you are of a STEM variety kind of guy, you can pretty much follow along most of it. If I spend a lot of time every day, I could probably pick up most of it. But there was a chart that kind of struck out at me really hard, because we've been hearing from the government that we're getting warmer and warmer and warmer, yet there's a chart up on that site that says over the last 2,000 years that high temperatures in Europe have been going down, which basically says are we past our warm period and starting to go, as what you said about the going into a 200-year minimum of the sun activity. Are we really starting to repeat what I heard, and probably you did as well, in the early 70s, mid-70s, that we're heading into a mini ice age again? So are we getting whipsawed? Are we getting the wrong information? Or what's the deal here, sir?
We are getting the wrong information, and you can prove anything with statistics. They have removed in the U.S. data and don't have in the global data any adjustment for urbanization. And as we know, the population of the world has gone from 1 billion to 7 billion. Most of the temperatures are measured at airports, in cities, in urban areas where, as we all know, cities are warmer than you get out to the rural areas. And that warming in the cities contaminates the data. Virtually all the warming they report over the last 120 years has been urban warming. There is a cyclical change in that due to changes in the ocean and the sun that is about 60 years. You can see those cycles if you look at that. And our own government actually did a calculation where they looked at long-term trends in both nighttime and daytime temperatures, and they found that nighttime temperatures is where we're seeing all the warming, and daytime temperatures really haven't changed much. Well, that's a classic urban heat island effect, because if you listen to your local news, they'll say tonight will be in Boston low around 40, but it'll be in the upper 20s when we get out to the suburbs. Tomorrow's high will be around 50. So the daytime temperatures are pretty uniform in the city and rural areas. It's night times that is a big difference. And without that, they used to have a correction for that, but they took that out for political reasons, and that's what they're using that surface-based temperature trends to try to drive policies. Unfortunately, we do have satellites that don't have any political agenda, and measure every single part of land and ocean globally, but unfortunately they only go back to 79. They started measuring temperatures with that, and they are showing there's been no warming. They agree that there's been no warming for 18 to 20 years, and even globally. And the pause, they call it.
Joe, Guy Comtois here. Back, I think, 10, 12 years ago, the History Channel did a special on Little Ice Age, Big Chill, and they talked about the 500-year Little Ice Age that started, pretty much ushered in the Dark Ages in Europe, where it was a 3-degree temperature change, and it had crops failing, and, of course, nutrition was a problem, then disease come in, and all the way into the days of the Revolutionary War, where I think it was in the 1700s, up in this part of New Hampshire, in June, they got a couple feet of snow, correct?
Right. In 1816, later on in another cold period, the 2-year cycle, we had the year without a summer where it snowed in June, and the crops failed.
Okay.
Hang on, we're pushing a lot of buttons here. I got phones coming in and stuff. We're gonna take a quick break right here. Joe, stay on the line. We have somebody else calling in who's also into meteorology, and we want to get them in on the conversation. Stay tuned. We will be right back.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at gerardatlarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
Rock Talk.
We are Grok Talk, brought to you by the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers and the bloggers at granitegrok.com. Thanks to everyone who tunes in every week, and if you miss us for the live show, you can still catch us on Stitcher, iTunes, Spreaker, TuneIn, or iHeartRadio. We are also on YouTube in both audio and video format, and Ustream, which we're streaming live if you want to watch the program, or you can watch it later after the fact because they save it for a little while. And Skip is showing Jane. See, Jane's on TV. Look at that. All right. We're currently on the phone with Joe DeLeo, and from ICECAP, where he writes, and weatherbell.com, where he works. And we've also got another person on the phone who is not just a fan of Joe's, but the weather and meteorology in general. Ron Moore is on the phone. Ron?
Hey, how you doing, man?
Hey, great to have you on. And Joe's on the other line. Joe?
Yes.
Hey, Joe.
Hi, Ron. Hi.
Hello, Joe. Pleasure to speak with you. You've been one of my heroes for a number of years here. So
that's great.
So
quite an honor here.
So we were talking. I'm trying to screw around with these levers to get my music to sound right and everything. We were talking about potential. What was guy was talking about the potential ice age. You brought it up, and I think I interrupted Joe. I don't remember. What were we talking about?
I think you were talking about snow in the summer in one of the.
That's right. Yep, Guy had asked you about that. Yep.
Yeah, and then 1816 was called the year without a summer, as Ron can tell you. That there was almost every month we had a frost or a freeze, and we had some snow in June, and the crops failed here in the Northeast. And we're in a similar. We're heading in a similar direction as the what we call the Dalton minimum, the solar minimum, the 200-year mini ice age, and so we're concerned not about global warming and rising sea levels, but cold winters. And if you study the effects of extreme weather, cold is far more dangerous than warm. Would you believe that 35,000 people in the UK die every year in winter? They call that excess winter mortality over the rest of the other 8 months of the year, and almost 500,000 in all of Europe and Russia. die each winter from the cold, not from the heat, from the cold. So if we get a colder period coming up and we are not set with our energy policy, and I think that's a story for another day, but we're going down a lot of the wrong paths there. We could be dealing with brownouts and blackouts, and that's not just inconvenient like it is in summer, but in winter it can be deadly.
Ron, did you guys want to get into the weeds on anything?
No, I'll just say exactly what Dr. D or Joe just said about the cold coming and everything else. And I would also say this, too, give Weather Bell kudos. Their company, I've been on there since day one. I'd followed Joe Pistardi in his previous life before that, and then I came on board there, and I'll tell you, their site is awesome. Not just for what it offers in maps and all the obvious, but their forums, their blogs, I mean, really, really good stuff. And I can say that having followed quite a few different blogs over the years in different places, they give a lot, and they give follow-up with a lot of the information we just chatted about, or that Dr. Joe just mentioned about the ice age and what's coming around now. He's exactly right. One of the things I do outside just loving weather, and you met my son Josh already, Josh Moore.
Yep.
We chase storms. Chased them since I grew up in West Texas in 1980, and it's not really empirical data, but it is to me. The number of tornadoes has gone way down. We're out there every spring chasing, not much to see. I mean, it's a great country to visit, but we go out there to see storms, and there's a big reduction in them this year. And even the El RINO tornado that was supposed to be the largest, most powerful one has been knocked down to, I believe, a strong F3 now because they had to do recalibration on radar estimates and stuff like that. So a lot of the data thrown at us, as Dr. D just said a minute ago, was the stats can be cooked, and that's true. They can rig these numbers out to be what they want to be, and instead of taking on what's really coming up and what's really a danger to us, we're making up things. And you don't have to make up storms. We're going to get some big ones. I did have a question for Dr. D, if I could give it out.
Mm-hmm.
The storm this week is going to be rain. Exactly right on that. And your models that Dr. Ryan Malley's put together are awesome. They actually indicate some fierce winds coming into the coast Christmas Eve evening. I'm looking at them this morning, and they show some pretty powerful winds. What's your thoughts on that? Anything for like a...
Yes, when those storms go to the west and we warm up, that's when we're subject to the greatest wind. Very often in winter, as you know, when we're dealing with cold air and low levels, the winds blow with these storms, but they blow above the surface. Then we get a low level, a layer of cold air that acts like it's an inversion, but it acts to lift the wind above the surface, so we don't have the damaging winds. But when the storm goes well to your west and you're able to warm up, you're really subject to very strong winds. So I do think Ron's exactly right. This could be a storm with lots of wind on the coast, a lot of coastal wind damage.
I want to do. I just watched Joe's summary last week, and I noticed this from time to time. I don't get to watch it every week, but have you seen a trend where the maps that we're getting from the Canadian and the Europeans are consistently more effective than the ones that we're finding in the U.S., or is that just maybe something that happens once in a while?
Well, I think Ron will attest that the most skillful models are the European model, and the Canadian high resolution model is improved greatly too. The U.S. is trying to improve their models by going to a high resolution, and we'll see if that helps. But we think the physics are an issue. We think they don't initialize the models. That's very important. If you put garbage in, you get garbage out, and they want to be first to get their models out, so they don't. Very often, what goes into the model forecast is a forecast from the last time they ran the model, and some new data, rather than the European, which waits for all the new data so they get the best initial conditions, and they have a better chance of getting a forecast right 10 days out than the U.S. models. So there is a significant difference between the models, and that's one of the challenges that all our forecasters, TV weather guys, and Weather Bell and have is we're looking at a lot of different solutions, and we have to pick from among them. Sometimes even the best model, a European, will throw out because for one reason or another, it has its own biases. We think in this case, in a case, the U.S. model is better. So it's really detective work that goes into the forecast, even a few days out, but certainly into seasonal and long-range forecasting.
Ron?
Yeah, so I agree. I couldn't say anything more to it.
Okay.
You said exactly right. That's my preference, too.
Is there any, as a rule, do all the TV forecasters and stuff look at all the models? Is there any, and as a side question, is there any political pressure anywhere to not be as accurate as maybe you'd want to be?
There is a push on TV meteorologists to try to connect any kind of extreme weather to climate change, the politics. They resist, and most TV stations say, no, don't make any comments about it because not all of our audience believes, in global warming, and no matter which side of you come down on it, you're going to turn off eyeballs, and then they're in the business of getting as many eyeballs as they can in television. So most TV meteorologists stay away from the climate issue. Mm-hmm. But they do tend to hype everything as a superstorm or Sandy, though, was the worst hurricane that hit the East Coast. And
Joe said they were invoking the Pineapple Express this week.
Yes, right. They love these new terms that sound like something new is happening and that we're responsible for. The Pineapple Express, the polar vortex. And Ron will tell you the polar vortex is up there even in the summer. Mm-hmm. It just is where it was, and the fact that it was so persistent last year that made it so remarkable. But and in terms of the extremes, what he said about tornadoes, this is one of the quietest years, if not the quietest year on record. Oh, yeah. And we had fewer forest fires than any year in going back to 1984. We had obviously died of a hurricane season in the Atlantic. We had more extreme cold, record cold, than when we had any record heat. The sea levels have slowed in their rise. All these things you don't hear about, but you only hear about every extreme weather event as if it's a sign if you don't we don't do something about keeping fossil fuels in the ground. We're all going to see a lot more of, and that's the.
We're going to actually run into the end of the segment here. Do you guys want to hang on for a few more minutes, and then we'll bring you back for a few more minutes in the next segment? Okay, sure. All right, great, thanks. I'll leave you two guys on the line. I'm not hanging up on you. I'm just, you can listen to the background music. You're still there. We'd like to thank Joe DeLeo and Ron Moore, who are on to talk to us about weather and climate. We have to take a quick break, about 2.5 to 3 minutes, and then we'll be right back. I didn't hit my music, so everything's going to be screwed up on my timing. But hey, I'll just fix it post-production, because that's what I do. This is Grok Talk. I'm here with Skip Murphy. My name's Steve McDonald, Joe DeLeo, and Ron Moore on the line. And hold, and we will be right back.
New Hampshire is famous for scenic drives, but they're tough to enjoy when you're on your way to the doctor. Because Obamacare limits your choices, some will have to drive more than an hour to see a doctor. What's health insurance worth if care isn't there when you need it? Jean Shaheen voted for Obamacare, putting your doctors and hospitals further out of reach. Tell Senator Shaheen Obamacare is not working for New Hampshire.
Jean Shaheen and her allies are making false claims about her record on veterans. The truth? Shaheen refused to meet with veterans pushing for reform. She wasn't on the committee that wrote the reform legislation and refused to co-sponsor important VA reforms in the VA Management Accountability Act until after the VA scandal broke. When our veterans needed her, Jean Shaheen was AWOL. Tell Jean Shaheen to stop distorting the truth and fix the VA.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at gerardatlarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now, at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Rock Talk.
Pull the lever, Gronk.
Rock Talk.
3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of Grok Talk, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone-stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
Rock Talk.
Welcome back to Grok Talk Segment 4 for December 20th, 2014. 5 days out from Christmas. We're going to have rain. No white Christmas. It's going to be a clear, watery, windy Christmas. And we've gotten the final word from Dr. Joe DeLeo and Ron Moore, who are on the line with us. Remind you that we are always thankful to the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers and, of course, the bloggers at GraniteGrok.com who help us put this show together every week. We're going to move on to talk about the weather and climate. And Skip had a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow on to what you were talking about earlier about the political correctness and that most of the station's weather folks aren't going to get into the climate change kind of deal. But similar type of question. Why do we always see them out in what is supposed to be bad weather? They stick these poor reporters out there in the pouring rain, in the windstorms, the tornadoes, the hurricanes, the whatevers. It's like most people can look out the window and go, yeah, the weather's not great. Why do we have to put the electronics and the people at risk for all this stuff? Does it really enhance the weather part of the news that much that they continue to do this? What is the real reason behind it, and isn't it all effective?
I don't believe it's effective, although they all do it, including the Weather Channel, which I was involved in at the beginning. People do like to see the weather, what's happening, and I guess without a person there to narrate it, it might not be quite as effective, but it'll end one day when, in a hurricane, Jim Cantori or some other poor soul will get hit from a falling tree, and there'll be, that'll put an end to it, or at least cut back on that. We do have chasers that go into hurricanes and tornadoes. The one in the Philippines last year, I met the fellow that flies into these worldwide, and he did an amazing video, but he came very close not to being able to come back and report about it. It left him shaken a little bit. So, but in a, I don't know, Ron, anything to add?
Yeah, actually, chasing over the years out in the plains, I was thinking about the TV studio. You know, when I went to Florida State and actually went in the meteorology program there, and then went into a master's in geography, and that's where we did hurricane climate, study that. But they had a term that said if it bleeds, it leads. You know, the worse it was, more people would watch. But I think one thing taking away from TV meteorologists being out there are the chasers. Everybody's got an iPhone. Everybody's got a camera. And when we go out to the Great Plains and chase, in West Kansas, West Texas, there can be as many as 500 cars with us in the middle of nowhere. I mean, the traffic will be backed up 3 or 4 miles on a dusty road. I mean, we're talking tower cams in the sky, so it's a huge industry behind this thing. In fact, now it's dangerous. We have option A, B, C. If our prime target is overridden with chasers and the Weather Channel, usually there, Discovery Channel, all the networks, we'll go to option B. If that's bad, we'll go to option C. And we'll sometimes miss the action just because there are so many people, not just locals, although that too. They're converged, what they call chaser convergence, all these storms. And, on YouTube it works. They get a lot of hits. We've been Skyped into WMUR and a couple of other stations up here from the Great Plains when we're on our chases. So I think it's going to go away from the studios because there's more people just doing it, and that's kind of lending to the YouTube and that whole thing. And I would say this, too, about climate and climate change. When I was at FSU, I studied hurricane climatology, and that was my master's work under actually someone who graduated out of Wisconsin. And they still got their team down there. We went chasing in the plains a couple of times together. I took some of the professors with me. And at that time, they did no correlation between global warming and hurricanes. Now, I've left that, obviously, but I keep track of these guys down there. And now they find correlations between more violent storms and stuff. But I look through, I'm obviously, and I say this with respect, I'm not as smart as Dr. D is with regards to a lot of the modeling and the physics, some of those things, but I agree with him on everything he said. But I do know enough to know when they're trying to correlate the two, it doesn't even look right, even on their own sheets, the way they put it together. And the one piece of data that is accurate, I believe, and Dr. D can correct me if I'm wrong, is violent hurricanes or major hurricanes. We've had none. In how many years now? It's been a number of years since we've been hit.
Going on 10.
Yeah, there's nothing to chase out. There's nothing to go after. I mean, we're in a period of dormancy, so they're putting out these papers saying it's worse, it's worse, it's worse, but all they point to is Sandy. And we know 1821 was worse than Sandy. That was a real major hurricane.
That's right.
So, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, isn't it really a case, though, that they say it's worse only because it costs more? Well, and they really kind of gloss over the whole idea is that, well, you've got a hurricane coming up the coast. It's going to cost billions and billions of dollars. Well, when more people come into the coast, they settle there, they build there, they develop there. Well, of course, when all that stuff gets right, that whatever they build up is going to get knocked down, and of course the insurance stuff. But that's the only thing they hold in on.
Exactly. Yeah, values have gone. We did a lot of the insurance. That's what actually we worked with the insurance, effect of that on the coastline and all that. But yeah, you're right.
You're right. The back in 1821, there were no subways, there were no tunnels. 150,000 people lived in Manhattan and the 5 boroughs, compared to 8.2 million now. You got a lot of development on the coast, on barrier islands where you shouldn't develop, and on the Jersey coast. And that was an unfortunate storm track. Sandy came into New Jersey and New York City, and it came at high tide, and that's what made all the difference in the world. That 4 or 5 foot additional water flooded the city, and then of course filled the tunnels and the subways, and that's where the great damage occurred.
I remember as a small kid watching the hurricanes coming through and kind of thinking, this is kind of cool. Look at all the trees going back and forth and the winds whistling and all that other stuff. And then I remember getting scared when I actually saw a tree being shoved by the wind rolling up the street. I went, oh, this might not be such a great thing. But I do remember, even as a kid, we had a lot more heavier storms in a row back in the 60s. And we don't have that, as you gentlemen pointed out. It's been dormant. It's been, both the hurricanes and the tornadoes have been rather weak lately.
Right. Between 1938 and 1960, there were, I think, 8 major hurricanes hit the East Coast. In fact, the major metro areas of the East. We had Irene and Sandy and Isabel in the last 12 years hit the East Coast. Isabel was a fairly strong storm, but Irene and Sandy were just borderline, Category 1 storms. A lot of rain, a lot of wind, but a large size, but not terribly strong. So we should be in an active period now because the Atlantic is in its 60-year warm cycle, and as it was back in the 30s to the 50s when it was active before. So we've actually gotten off easy until the Atlantic goes into its cool mode, which should be within maybe 4 or 5 years. We're still vulnerable along the East Coast to hit, and we have to worry that in southern New England.
Were you surprised? I know the original projection for the hurricane season was to have more serious storms or to have more storms in general, and that just didn't happen.
Well, actually, Joe, we were not surprised that the tropics themselves, the deep tropics, were quiet. We did expect that there would be storms that would affect the mid-Atlantic coast that would develop close in. We had Arthur early on that did that, exactly that. But after that, they stayed off the coast more, and 2 of them affected Bermuda. Actually, I'm relieved. I don't like sitting in the dark for 6 days. So...
Joe mentioned Isabel. I actually chased Isabel. I was actually with a weather meteorologist out of Virginia Beach in Hampton Roads, right on the water. And you're right, that was a big one, came into North Carolina. But the flooding is so significant with these sorts of floods, the tunnels. It does infrastructure damage that was incalculable 100, 150 years ago. And that's where we get a lot of that. It has a massive impact on, like you said, blows out the power forever. And I'm still concerned about this thing Wednesday night, the Christmas Eve evening. I keep looking at those models, and the winds just look incredible. Even coming in this far inland, I could be wrong. It does have to be pulled to the surface with those heavy storms. I'm wondering if they hit the 30 or 40 or 50 even here in southern New Hampshire.
That's not impossible. We could have down trees and some power outages, even inland as well, too. And then as it gets cold, that becomes an issue. And something people ought to really think about as we look toward colder and colder winters and more snowstorms, more East Coast storms, is backup plans. A lot of people have generators on my street now after the early snow and the ice storms of the last 5 or 8 years. But you still have the problem of getting gasoline and and trying to keep the house warm. A lot of people don't have the generators, and without that, in the winter, the pipes freeze and can cause significant damage if they burst. I have a friend who had $17,000 worth of damage when a pipe burst.
Ouch.
Well, we've recommended that people plan ahead, whether it was rain or snow. That we've already talked about it on our email list. Tell people, go out now, fill your fuel cans. If you needed a generator, you should have already gone and bought it. But if you can find one, get it now. You have extension cords, have water, have food, have canned goods. It could be a couple days. Just be prepared.
And gasoline.
Yes, absolutely.
Extra gasoline because the gas stations will go down.
Right. Now, I'm a political blogger, and I just cannot help myself. And I've never heard anybody who is skilled in the weather arts like you folks, so I'm going to ask the question. Has anyone in the scientific community ever established that there actually is a correlation to where Al Gore shows up to give a speech and the cold weather that comes in immediately afterwards?
It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, he's even gone to Australia in the first day of summer where he was. It snowed.
Yeah, I mean it's a running joke, no doubt. But sometimes the engineer part of me goes, I wonder if there's any truth to this.
He must have
I think God has a hand in it.
You'd have to say, huh? All right, well, I'm going to let you gentlemen go. We have some minor housekeeping to take care of before the end of the program. Thank you to Joe DeLeo and Ron Moore for spending some time with Grok Talk. You guys have a great weekend, and I hope you still have power on Christmas.
Yes, and Merry Christmas to listeners and to all you guys.
All right, guys, thanks a lot.
Okay.
Bye-bye. All right, that was our weather segment.
I think that was a yes.
Yes. So We're going to do our WTF. We're going to do a little housekeeping after the break, and I got to click some buttons and do some things and push some stuff, and let's go do that, and we'll be right back.
We are struggling. Rising healthcare costs are part of the problem. Senator Jeanne Shaheen helped create this mess we're in. As a state senator, her bill chased 21 insurers out of our state. It reduced our choices, raised prices for New Hampshire families, and when Jeanne Shaheen supported Obamacare, it limited access to 10 of our 26 hospitals, reducing our choices again. Tell Jeanne Shaheen she's made healthcare worse.
It is Grok Talk. All right, we have got to decide
Grok.
what our WTF is going to be.
Well, I have a brand new entry.
Oh, well, it's always another entry. That's the beauty of being a political blogger. Just wait a minute, and somebody's calling us. It must be Mike.
Oh.
Who was going to call us, but he couldn't because of the... because I had everybody on the phones. Which line's he on? One? Okay.
Yep, put him on.
Put Mike on. Mike!
Flashy. How
Yeah.
are you guys?
Oh, good. Yeah, we couldn't stop the conversation, so we sorry to keep you off the... All right, so...
No, I was listening to it on Ustream, and the bandwidth was just about enough. Ustream's quite high quality. I got audio and no video, and it broke up occasionally, but it was decent.
Well, there was some breaking up just because of the way I have to juggle phone lines. But anyway, Skip says he has a new entrant in this week's WTF, so let's find out what is that,
Yes,
Skip?
White House fears President Cruz will overturn executive amnesty. And let me give you the background. White House senior advisor Dan Pfeiffer conceded that he fears President Ted Cruz will overturn President Barack Obama's executive amnesty, perhaps signaling that Cruz represents the greatest threat to the progressive left, and I certainly agree with that. But here's the thing that drives that statement.
Oh, Judy, do you think the black working class will vote for Ted Cruz to save their jobs?
Yeah, well, no. But here's why Dan Pfeiffer said this. Over our first 100 days, we spent a lot of time signing executive orders undoing what George Bush had done, and I would not like to be sitting on a beach somewhere reading about President Cruz doing that to us. So it's very important to us. In other words, they're going to do everything they can to destroy and demonize Ted Cruz now, so that I would love to see some presidential candidate on the right running to say, I promise that on the first day, my first executive order repeals all of President Obama's executive orders. I'd be a happy camper.
I thought even Romney said that at one point. Never mind the conservatives. I know a couple of people were saying that in 2012.
Yep, I would love to see that happen. And if they're scared of it, it shows you. Well, here's the thing that also drove me crazy. Earlier in the day, Pfeiffer declared, and I haven't blogged about this yet, I put it aside, that Obama's executive amnesty was one of the reasons that made 2014 a year of great progress for the progressive agenda. Let's translate that, shall we? It says that he loves being a dictator, using only his pen to do what he wants to without going through the time-honored American way of making law, which is through legislation and checks and balances. He wants to be king. He wants to be emperor. And it also shows that's pretty much the only way that the progressives can get their agenda moved forward at a reasonable pace, because if they ever ran a campaign on being a progressive, most of the time they're going to lose.
So you put up that map of
the red states.
The red states and the blue states.
And they've been calling the Republicans for years a regional party.
Yeah,
That's a big region.
The region is almost all of the U.S.
Yeah, and it's not just in the U.S. House and Senate, but it's almost a complete wipeout of the Democrats at the state level, with 31 governorships, 66% of all the legislative seats, and in more than half, I think it is, the Republicans outright own both the upper and lower chambers in those states.
But the only office that currently matters is the office of the president, because the president can do whatever the hell they want, according to Democrats.
And will the Republicans get that message, Mike, that they've let the federal government get so large? That's the whole reason why he gets to do and can do what he wants to. Are they going to make the connection? Gosh, big government, executive orders. How do we break this?
Right. Oh, there you are. Okay.
Yeah. I'm here. I don't know. I mean, the right thing to do is to make it impossible for presidents to do this by themselves. The question is whether Republicans would ever summon the necessary fortitude to make it
Democrats
so.
would.
And well, Democrats will try and stitch it up so we can never undo it. What we need is a president who's willing to undo it, willing to take the arrows, of which Ted Cruz is one of the few, and a party to back him up to say, and once we've undone this garbage, we're going to make sure it can't happen again.
Well, I think a lot of what has happened the last 6 years comes from Obama's background. I'm not even going to get into the birther area area because it's just worthless speak. But I can posit, like a lot of other people, Obama isn't like most of our other presidents because he didn't really grow up in all that of an American environment. You take somebody from the flyover country. The outlook on America is far different there than the schooling and the life experiences that he had, which were a lot of times during his formative years other than the traditional American values. I don't think anybody can dispute that. And I think that shows in the way that he has tried to govern and the way he looks at America in general. I think this is one of the great problems that the founders could not anticipate, and this is why we've gotten what we've got. Plus, driven by that foreign political philosophy called progressivism that started under von Bismarck and then grabbed over here by the pointy-headed academicians.
Yeah, and of course the Fabian Marxists in the UK. But they did anticipate it. They insisted that you had to have been born in America to American citizens in order to be president. And Obama
That's just
has
racist.
sidestepped that.
Well,
absolutely, and I'll wear that one proudly. He's not goddamn American. In fact,
did I just lose you? I think he just maybe the NSA cut him off.
I think we did lose him.
Okay. In fact, we're going to pick our WTF because we're running out of time. I got to be honest with you. We had a lot of good choices. I think we're going to have to go with the roll call rules change because that's got a lot of. I mean, I don't know how they're going to not vote that, and they have enough Democrats, and the RINOs will vote for that on the floor.
Yep.
So I think that we're going to have to do that. They're going to have to find a way to get a block of 20 people who are always ready to go. Roll call. Oh, here he is. He's back. So we're going to bring him back into the show. You there, Mike?
Yeah, it was weird. It just went to one-way audio.
Yeah, I said the NSA. You heard me, right? The NSA cut you off.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Well, I would agree with you with the WTF being the roll call change by Democrat-appointed Speaker Jasper, because under our rubric of Screw D.C., Save New Hampshire, this is much more germane to our lives today, in the now, here in New Hampshire, than anything else that Obama is doing. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a lot bad that he will force down our throats, but this is important stuff.
Well, this is an opportunity for us at the state level to do things that need to be done to protect us from the federal government, like we've been saying, and we need this kind of transparency. And the first thing they do out of the gate is whatever they can to make sure we don't have it.
Correct. Mike?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these guys don't want any transparency. That's why I said earlier, just as we were finishing the other segment, that this is like rats legislating against rat poison, or Democrats.
Democrats. That was sort of a yawn. Sorry. I didn't sleep much last night. Anyway.
But you've had enough coffee to make you jittery.
I'm jittery, definitely jittery. If you watch me on live stream, my hands are all shaky because of the caffeine.
I actually had to ask him, are you okay?
He thought I was having epilepsy or something. I had a couple cups at home, and vocally I could get some Tourette's in there, stumbling over everything I say. I do have a condition, but it has nothing to do with speaking or moving my fingers. So, you're some crazy right-wing hater. Yeah, I think I just addressed that this morning. Read GraniteRock.com if you want to know what I said. So we have about 4 minutes left. We've got our roll call. I think we need to really work that 20 thing, that roll call change. I mean, they're not going to vote on it till the first session when they actually go back in January. So we have between now and January to really work this. I mean, it just plays into everything. It comes out the same day as Drew Klein's editorial saying, you really got to stop overhunting rhinos. The rhinos just made it harder to find rhinos.
Well, that thing that Jane brought up also about,
Guy
brought up that before they could sign the piece of paper saying, sort of a pre-second type of deal, now they've got to be in their seats. Well, that basically makes that irrelevant, because if you're in your seat anyways, you can stand up.
You don't need to sign the thing.
Right.
So I think that I think what they should do is just get a roll call on everything. That might be the solution. The solution might be that every time somebody stands up, every single vote, just somebody stands up and says roll call, and then immediately the entire 120 or however many of them all stand up and second it. They're going to have to do it every single time. That's the only way.
Can we get our two new conservative New Hampshire state senators, Gary Daniels and Kevin Avard, to do the same thing in the Senate?
I don't know what their rules are, but yeah, we should ask them, because that's a problem that we only brushed past. I think I may have interrupted Mike while he was talking or something and said, the Senate, everybody bitches about the Senate not doing roll calls.
Yeah.
Everybody. I mean, except for the rhinos in the Senate, and they don't want them for the same reason.
Yeah. Mike, you still there?
No, yeah, I'm still here, and you didn't interrupt me, and that's absolutely the case. That sorry, well, we lost the thread. They
derailed
don't
your train of thought.
Yeah, they don't do roll calls in the Senate, and we do want to know what they're doing, and if we can get enough of the conservative Republicans to stand up and demand and second roll call votes, we can really expose these cockroaches.
Who else have we got in the Senate? Cataldo? He's still there?
Yeah.
Okay.
He is there.
He'd go for it.
He's decent. Yeah, he goes for most conservative stuff.
Cataldo. We got anybody else over there? I can't remember. I don't think so. That's it. They're all just Democrats and...
They're progressive Republicans.
They're progressive Republicans.
A couple others may not be, but for the most part, the progressive Republicans are those that are running the show there.
I know there's a few that will be a little bit more cautious this year about some of the votes that they cast. They'll certainly not want anybody to know, but we're going to have to ask our good friends Gary Daniels and Kevin Avard to make mental notes, or actually write down notes about how people vote in the Senate, because that might be the only way we find out. And so they won't be very popular for that, but if we can't get roll calls out of that body, we need to do something.
We need to get cameras of our own installed where they meet.
Do they? Don't they have cameras in there?
Yeah, well, we want them to several cameras so that we can watch everybody's lips.
Yes, we are looking for lip readers, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, hey, just a quick shout out. If you are one of those people who spends a lot of time reading or following a specific piece of media in New Hampshire, be it MUR Online or maybe Seacoast Online or the Union Leader, the Telegraph, or the Concord Monitor, and you do it daily, you make it a part of your morning to go and read these online venues. Online is better for us. That's what we're looking for. We'd like you to reach out to us and let us know who you are, because we have a job for you. And maybe we'll talk about that later. But we're running out of time. Mike, thanks so much for calling us from India. We look forward to seeing you when you come back in 2 days. Hope you have a safe flight.
So do I. Thank you very much. It's going to be an exciting couple of days as I trip to Mysore, which is not an ugly condition, but is in fact the former seat of the Maharajas and the home of a great temple and much other stuff.
All right. I'm cutting you off because we're out of time, because that's what I do at the end of the show. Thank you so much for coming in there. I am Steve McDonald here with Skip Murphy. We are Grok Talk. Thanks again to Joe DeLeo and Ron Moore, and, of course, to Guy Comtois and Jane Cormier. We'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, baby! When asked whether she still supports Obamacare, Senator Jeanne Shaheen said,
Yes, I do continue to support the law. We're beginning to see some positive results.
How can Senator Shaheen say we're seeing positive results when 22,000 of our neighbors have already lost their health insurance? What's worse, the Boston Globe reports the state's only health insurance provider radically reduced the number of hospitals in their network, forcing some people to drive over an hour for lab work, even when there's a hospital within a few miles of their home. When pressed about lack of access, Shaheen said,
there are some hospitals that are not covered, unfortunately, and I certainly hope that's going to change.
Jean Shaheen promised us we could keep our doctors and our health care coverage. Now she hopes we can get to a local hospital? Call Senator Shaheen at 603-647-7500. Tell her we need more than hope. We need leadership. Paid for by Citizens for a Strong New Hampshire.
Senator Jean Shaheen said, if you like your current health plan, you can keep it. That's not true, Senator. 22,000 New Hampshire citizens have been kicked off their insurance plans. Hospitals in Rochester, Concord, and Portsmouth, they aren't allowed to provide care under the exchange. Senator, you were wrong in your comments. You should apologize for your misleading remarks. I'm calling Senator Shaheen at 750-3004 and telling her I want my doctor back. You should too.
Paid for by saberpac.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidate committee.
All of the music on this program comes to us through Creative Commons licensing from Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. The opinions expressed on this program are those of the speakers, not necessarily those of CNHT, GraniteRock.com, or anyone else for that matter.